Okay, welcome everyone. All right, the really big surprise is that I'm going to do the entire talk in Spanish. Okay, not enough people laughed because clearly you don't know me to know that I don't know any Spanish. All right, so we're going to... Ido, how's your Spanish?
Not that.
All right, so you're...
I
Sorry.
got nothing.
So, okay, you're going to have to do your best with our version of just in English here. And
This is a very temporary problem.
It can be learned.
Well, AI is going to solve this for us very soon.
Okay, all right. AI is going to solve this. All right, so what we're going to talk about is basically how education is colliding with AI. How do these things come together? And by the way, if at any time you want to be part of this conversation, just raise your hand and we'll take your input or your question. And so, we might be just talking about something and you're like, oh, that's dull. What I really want to know, and happy to bring you into the conversation.
And I'll add that there's a prize for the person that asks the most thought-provoking question.
All right.
It's not cash, but there's a prize.
And by the way, there's a third person on this panel. I don't know if you noticed that. All right, I haven't introduced you, but I'm about to also introduce Esther. Hi, Esther.
Hi.
Hey,
From
can you...
Silicon Valley.
Yeah, that's right, right. That's actually the reason why we had this session at the very end of the day, because otherwise it will be like 2 or 3 in the morning for her. I will appreciate all of you for staying right to the end for the best session of the day, but in advance, I'll just say that. So anyway, we're definitely going to talk about AI and education. I'm going to introduce both of you a little bit, one at a time, and I'm going to ask you just to start, like after I introduce you, I'm going to ask for your just pre-statement, like just before we go into it, do you have any comments about education or AI or their intersection? Okay, that's going to be the question. So let me start with Esther, okay? So Esther, or the Waj, I don't know, either way, I can say it just in her introduction, in her rough introduction, she is probably one of the most famous educators in the entire world for 25 plus years. She can correct me with all the details here, but over 25 years, she's been a really famous teacher and in the Palo Alto school system in Silicon Valley. Not only have her students done amazingly well, her own kids did amazingly well. One of them was the founder, CEO of YouTube, one for 23andMe, and one is a professor in UCSF, University of California, San Francisco. And I think based on all that success, she has a second book, which she wrote on how to raise successful people. I think she's really got the credibility for both the teaching and the raising of successful people. So, Esther, I want to first really appreciate that you're joining and like getting up early and like joining remotely. But AI and education, just your initial thought, it's kind of like a psychology Rorschach test. I say AI, education, what comes to your mind?
So the main thing that comes to my mind with AI education is the fear that school districts and educators have of AI. And one of the problems is that when anything new is introduced into the education system, the number one reaction is fear. I just remember what happened when calculators were introduced into the system. And the school districts banned calculators. And they didn't want any of the kids to use them because they said if you use a calculator, you won't learn to add and subtract. So we have some of the same behavior happening now where schools and universities are afraid that AI is going to take over and that students are not going to be educated the way they should be. My philosophy in education has been to empower the students, to give them the opportunity to believe in themselves and to work independently. That's probably the reason that my program was so popular and why it grew to such a degree. I realized that AI is a new toy out there for everybody. It's pretty fun to play with, and I don't think that banning it is a good idea, because when you ban something, it becomes even more sweeter. You want to find out why it's banned. So the main thing I think is that school districts need to realize that AI can be a real asset. It can help teachers be better teachers. It can answer questions that students might have that they ask repeatedly, and that the teacher now doesn't have to answer those questions. The AI can answer the questions. So in a nutshell, that's my philosophy, that we should allow students to use AI and to bring the ways that they use AI to help their learning into the classroom, and help the teachers understand that it's not such a threat, but it's an asset to helping us educate students more effectively.
Okay, wonderful. So that's a great pre-statement, and just the two keywords were fear and basically, in a way, the asset for what teachers will be able to do, like an assistance to teachers. Okay, now, Ido, I'll just do a minimal introduction for you, which is really hard, actually, because I don't even know the number of companies that you've been the CEO of. You're definitely the CEO of TouchCast now. You founded a lot of different things. You've got the perspective of a businessman. You've got the perspective of technology and AI, because you've been working with it for years. And it just, like, it's not written anywhere, but like my translation, you've been kind of at the center of like the intersection of technology and art, or maybe technology, art, and business, but kind of at this intersection, just like, I'm going to say, you don't just know it, but like you live it. Like it's kind of become you, or you've become it, or whichever. So with all of that kind of background, what's your pre-statement on AI and education?
So first, disclaimer, I feel a bit like an interloper in this panel with great minds like Esther and yourself as educators. My better half, Ayelet, is actually got her PhD at Columbia Teachers College, so I've benefited from seeing her journey in the future of education and progressive education and project-based learning as opposed to more formal learning. So I've learned through symbiosis a bit, and unfortunately she couldn't make it today. But I've lived this world since for the last 30 years, and for me it's somewhat of almost like a spiritual journey. It's a journey for ultimately this notion of a collective consciousness, which is translated by, depending on where you're born, into Jehovah or Allah or Hindu gods. And now we're in a place where we, for the first time, have some technologies that allow us to empirically touch this gestalt of all of us, of this collective knowledge we have. And I think I meet with many CEOs. Our company is very successful in this field, working with massive consultancies like Accenture, who's both an investor and a partner with over 700,000 employees using our technologies to help reinvent what consulting is, which is a really big deal. Consulting is teaching in many ways, so I have had some exposure to that as well. And I think my experience talking to a lot of CEOs, and I think also listening to some of the talks here, is that I don't think people really understand what this thing is. And my contribution, hopefully, in this short session would be to maybe help illuminate what I think it is. And as a spoiler, it's not ChatGPT. It's not something that write me a blog post and it writes you a blog post. That is such a tiny bit of what this thing is. This thing is a seismic revolution, because everything we have accomplished as a species is driven by cognition. Like, we're not sitting in a cave talking about our last hunt with the fire. We're sitting here with microphones, and because of cognition.
Yeah.
And we now have this newfound ability that is really, I think, going to revolutionize the field of education. It's possibly the most obvious place where it's going to make a very obvious positive outcome. There's a lot of other areas where it's a mixed bag, leaning towards negative. Whereas with education, I think it's pure upside.
Okay, so I'm going to say your keyword summary is basically it's this revolutionary improvement that we can have in education. It's far more than just what you see today. And we're talking about AI. AI is...
And I would say that Esther's comment about the calculator is a really
Yeah.
relevant one.
Right, right. Okay, so we got the fear, we got the teaching assistant, we've got the multiplier on what you can do with education. Before we just jump right into what will education be in future, how can AI be so great or whatever, let's actually just, what's the word? It's kind of like, let's complain a little bit, okay? So what I want to hear is what's wrong with education? Like, before we fix it, what do you not like about it? What does it not do well? What is it supposed to do? Maybe it's perfect. Maybe there's nothing better that needs to be done in education, and the AI is great, but why don't we just do things the way it is? What's wrong with education? Let's go back to Esther. What do you think? Is there something wrong with education?
Unfortunately, there's a lot wrong with education. The main thing is that education today in 2023 is the same as it was 100 years ago. There's a professor that lectures and the students take notes, and then the class is over in an hour, and then they leave. And everyone knows, educational research shows that lecture is the least effective way to teach. And we're still doing it. It's crazy. I mean, even, I'm connected with the University of California, Berkeley, and I can tell you they're still learning math and science and whatever in classes with 500 people and one professor lecturing. And we know, as an educator, I know that people learn by doing. They don't learn by watching. But we're still doing the watching.
Yeah, so that's a really strong point, right? I mean, it's like if learning is about doing and programming that in your head, and we're only watching, okay, that's a big problem by itself. I'm not sure if Esther is if the internet's fully working there. We can come back to her. You tell me something you don't like about education today.
Well, first I would say that you mentioned I've built a lot of companies, I've a lot of patents. I would never be accepted as a student to your institution. I'm not even, and I've been a professor and I've taught.
That's not only because we have you on a list to deny.
Yes,
right.
not just the blacklist
there's
part.
Other reasons.
Let's not mention that thing that happened.
Right, it's on the blacklist.
Yeah. And there's a lot of people like me that would never fit into the industrial machine that is Victorian scalability of systems. And that's one problem. So there's a loss function of really bright minds. And the part that's more offensive to me is the loss of people that don't have the opportunity because of where they were born, because of their economic situation, because of what they look like.
Yeah.
And I think making higher education accessible to a broader swath of the population is, again, a pure upside.
Okay, so there's the kind of accessibility part. That's really what you're talking about here. And there's kind of two versions of accessibility. One is you can't afford it. One is you're in a place far away, you don't have the economic means, all of those things. Another version of inaccessibility is that universities can be too narrow in what they think smart means. So they say, if you scored this number on a test, you can get in. And if you didn't score that number on a test, you can't get in. But what if there's actually 10 different ways to be smart, and that was only one, but they were just cutting on that one? So, there's the accessibility where you are and how much money you have. There's the accessibility of even if you're the right type of smart, right? So you say, okay,
your
that's
culture,
a problem.
your language, many different reasons
Yeah, right.
for
Okay.
preventing and the actual medium that is used as well.
So, you know, I'll say a couple things that annoy me about education, and I actually have a long list, believe it or not. And I'll just see if you guys agree or you want to add on or you disagree with that. But a couple more things that I think are kind of wrong with education. One is there's this assumption that the teacher knows everything and the student just needs to get that information directly from the teacher. I think people really learn against the challenge of what they're trying to do, and that the teacher is supposed to create that environment, not just give them information. I think another thing that's kind of wrong with
I just want to
education.
say that
Yeah.
I agree 100%.
All right, that's a, you know, when she agrees, that's a victory for me. So, all right. And then, you know, like more things, I guess, you know, when we teach people things, you know, it's like we can teach them math and logic and things like that, but we usually don't teach them behaviors. We usually don't teach them mindsets. And when people are successful in the world, it's not just because they can solve a math problem faster or that they can read faster or comprehend faster. It's also because how they react to the word no, or like 20 other things that happen in real life, partly between generating trust with people and EQ and your comfort zone and like all kinds of other things. And so there's another thing that I think, like, you know, it's like our best version of doing that is work on a project together. And by the way, the topic of the math on the project isn't really all you're going to learn. You're going to learn a bunch of other things. But it's just a rough proxy. I'm just saying there's so much more to teach than the narrow part that's normally in education. Viewpoint?
I agree. I think the foundational medium of conveyance of knowledge is about to be totally upended by these technologies, and that's kind of where we maybe veer into what it is.
Okay. So I'm going to watch the time, and at a certain point, we're going to switch over, and we're going to stop complaining about education, and we're going to ask you, well, how could it be better?
Yeah.
But I got one more, I'll just say one more kind of example of something that I think has gone wrong, and this is with technology. So I would watch my daughter take math classes in California. Okay, so like, you know, back in California, and she would, and they use technology.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they have programs on websites, and you're supposed to click on, you know, you do the problem and you click on it and you don't understand it, there's something else you can click on to explain it. They have all this stuff, okay? And I can't tell you how much time gets wasted just trying to put the answer in the format that the technology wants it. I don't know, Esther, if you have had this experience, but it's like the kid knows exactly how to do the problem, they got it, and now they entered the number 42.13. And they're like, no, not the right answer. 42.132. Nope, that's not the answer. Pi times this number divided by that. Nope, that's not the answer. And then eventually you finally get the one way that they want it, and you're like, okay, we just wasted like an hour, even though we knew it. And that's when the technology like was supposed to make it better, supposedly, and it actually just made it completely worse. Okay, again, another problem. Maybe you have more. We're going to switch to how it could be better, but let's, if you guys got more you want to complain about, you just tell me.
Esther, maybe,
Esther?
do you have anything you want to add?
Well, I think that is a really a valid concern that you just expressed, because, you know, just using the technology and getting it in the right blank is a real problem. A lot of people have that in all sorts of things that they're doing online. But also, the other major problem that I think is that kids find, they're very smart, and they find alternative ways to get the information, or in fact, they find even more information. and then they're not rewarded in any way for being innovative or being even more curious. They're rewarded for actually doing what you just said, filling in the blank with the direct answer that the software wants or that the teacher wants. But if you give kids more of an opportunity to be in control of the learning, and to come up with answers that might not be the answers that the teacher thinks is the answer, there's a lot more learning that takes place. And not only that, a lot more excitement. Kids get really into it. And so that's what I would like to suggest.
Yeah, perfect. You know, I mean, I just say one short thing and then you go ahead. But I just want to say that's an example where technology actually constrained you more than helping. Like, it's like it just locked you into that fill in the blank, but even a harder blank and a more narrow one. Like, it didn't open up the world for you. And I think wherever we go with the AI, I hope we don't go there. You know, I hope we don't go to, that is wrong, you know, it's like instead of like on the screen, it just tells it to you. Well, it doesn't matter. It didn't help you. Go ahead.
Now, I was going to say that I mentioned I wouldn't get accepted in this university, but most of them. So the only place that did accept me was an art school, which I spent some time in. And sometimes you need art to express something that's hard to put in words, especially because it's not in our experience. So I actually brought you a gift. And you can see it on the screen. It's actually, Esther, I'm going to give you one too.
This is my one gift of the year.
I'm going to put it next to your Zoom
monitor. I
monitor.
have to really like cherish it. Okay.
If we can put up the slide on this, Marco, on the screen. And it's actually a gift to all of you. You can scan that code and grab it. And the person that will give us the most thought-provoking question will get one as well. And the story I try to tell through a metaphor here has to do, I think, with starting with humility. I think a lot of times in an educational context, you expect the person speaking to you to know the answers, which is what a professor does. Like, you come in, we tell you how it is. And of course, the role of events like this is to try to prescribe a way for you to process what's going on. But I would argue that in this revolution we're living through, to make it clear, you are the goldfish. And the metaphor is that if you have a goldfish sitting on your counter at home, which I do, and I left my home in New York and got in a cab and got on a plane and came here, and like, they have no way to understand that I did all those things.
The goldfish doesn't know.
The goldfish can't comprehend this idea.
It's obviously not a smart goldfish.
It's got its little bubble. It's not smart. It's just that's its world. And that is a means to think about what AI is, because AI has the ability to understand things that we can't necessarily understand through the glass ceiling of our biological evolution, our cognition. It is able to do things that we can't do on an individual basis. Now, we don't
I just want to make sure, we're the goldfish.
We are the goldfish.
We're the goldfish, and AI is the thing that knows that you got on the plane and came back and has, is that what you're saying? It has the rest of the information?
Well, the point is that, so I made a conscious effort to not dress appropriately for the event. And I dressed like my tribe, the people that are building these technologies. And I can tell you, we're all terrified of this, because we don't know how it works. And you'll talk to the greatest minds at OpenAI, and what's happening is we are seeing emergent phenomenon.
Yeah, they don't know how it works either.
Engineers don't appreciate that. Engineers, we build things, we're building a machine that does that, right? We built this machine that's doing things we didn't dream it will do, and we all feel we're in the beginning of a journey. So I'm saying, as the person that's done this for 30 years, I don't understand it. That's where humility comes in, right? Now, I don't take that to, it's going to kill all of us. I take it to, where is this massive potential to empower people and how we do it? And I think for me what it means for education is that we should think of this as a medium of communication. So if you study Marshall McLuhan and The Media is the Message, and great YouTube video on that, if you're not familiar with this thinking, so prescient. The medium that you use to communicate between humans very much defines the experience. And all mediums we had until this point, think about going back to before the Gutenberg press, you had priests speaking Latin, copying stuff, a monopoly on knowledge. We had Gutenberg press, then we had the internet. Suddenly, my kid has all of the world's information in his pocket. But there all been a way to encode some ideas in a hard shell and try to move it into your brain. And AI is not that. AI is ability to encode ideas in a way that is conversational, where when it engages with another mind, that other mind can start a conversation with it. Going back to the Socratic method, and it was mentioned by the person that spoke earlier about his experience with Oxford, where they get 98% better scores. The reason they do is because that medium of conversation, which is what happens in the classrooms when there's a lecture, is 100 times more potent than here's a book, figure it out, in terms of the speed of velocity of learning. And today already, we kind of have that capability. It's kind of best captured, if you haven't seen this TED Talk by Sal Khan, a hero of mine, hopefully most of you in the education field, I can't think of a life better spent than what this man has accomplished in democratizing education.
Right.
And when they launched GPT-4, he was one of their launch partners. And it's very easy to see the doom and gloom of how AI is going to disrupt the workforce and create unemployment and try to kill us and all the things that it can do. It's not trivial to find the good things, because that's always the case, by the way, with humans, unfortunately. And if you watch this 15-minute thing, you'll see this premise, which was also articulated in the prior session, is that when you have one-on-one tutoring, you jump 2 sigmas better in terms of outcomes. But we've never had the ability to do that. We didn't have the money, we didn't have the infrastructure.
I'd like to just correct the last speaker from earlier. 2 sigmas is 94.5%. I just want to say
thank you.
It's not
the
92,
engineering you is
it's not
really
97,
popping out.
but continue on.
And now we do. Now we can offer one-on-one tutoring around any content base to curious minds, so they can learn at their own pace, in their own way, which we know empirically fundamentally changes the outcomes. So I think we're going to be in a place where the future of academia is that there is this foundational IP, intellectual property that academia has, like IE. And that IP is the collective intelligence of all of the bright minds that attracted, like yourself, the students that learn there, all those conversations, and you can converse with it. And even when you retire and you have a student that really appreciated the learnings from you, they will be able to come back and start a conversation informed by everything that you've taught and created. So it's a fun, and I think that will be the most important asset of a university in the future.
Let me try to turn this into a dialogue a little bit. So kind of the summary so far is we've got this knowledge. Before, we just wrote it somewhere and it was static. But AI is a medium. So now you can talk to the AI can translate that set of knowledge. It's very fluid, you can go back and forth. But the fact is, it's changing, it's a medium, it just gives you another window. Whatever window you want into knowledge, it gives it to you.
It's the first living medium we've had.
It's a living, even though it's AI.
It's not a dead medium.
Yeah, dynamic.
It's alive.
Right? Yeah.
We're publishing an AI, we're not publishing a document.
I'm not convinced it's alive, but you know, all right, we'll get there.
It's alive in that it's not static.
Yeah.
It's not fixed.
All right. Here's my question to you guys, okay?
Can we get Esther back on the screen, please?
Yeah. My question to you
Marco?
is, did that make any sense to you? Do you follow that? Do you say, oh, yeah, it's a medium. I know exactly what you mean. What do you think? How many people say, oh, obvious, yeah, it's a medium?
Yes.
How many people, yeah, go ahead, ask a question.
Going on with this view of AI in artificial intelligence, my question is, when I am a secondary teacher, and students love dialogue in class. Mainly, they are developing their formal thinking, and mainly what they want is to disagree with you.
Yep.
As a teacher, as a person, as a whatever. Can you disagree with artificial intelligence, or is like chess, that every time it's going to be upper in knowledge from me, from students, from everybody?
Why do you think the students like to disagree? Why do you think that? Why does that phenomenon exist?
Because they are starting to develop some procedures that is easier for them, yes and no.
Maybe they're practicing. Maybe they're practicing their critical thinking.
Of course, but they conceive that I am a human and we are equal somehow.
Yeah. Okay.
Can they disagree with artificial intelligence or not?
Okay. His point is basically, what if this AI seems too knowing and too powerful? Maybe you might be intimidated to disagree. Let's get Esther's point of view on this. Esther, has a student ever disagreed with you in class?
Well, actually, I think students like to challenge you. And it makes them feel like, they're thinking and that they're somewhat better. And yes, a lot of students have disagreed. And I actually found that pretty exciting as opposed to threatening. Because some of the ideas that they came up with were actually better than my ideas. And I had to admit that. And of course, it made them happy. I think you can still disagree with AI because I can tell you there's a lot of answers that I've gotten from AI that are not correct. Actually, I have to laugh at some of them.
I got to agree with you there. I mean,
trained that AI to say the wrong thing.
I have to agree with you there in the sense that if AI gives me an answer and you give me an answer, for now, I'm going to go with yours. Like, there's a lot of, hallucination's not even really the right word. There's a lot of randomness in what it'll be different. I understand it'll be different in 10 years. It'll be different in 5 years. Right now, I don't think any student is afraid of disagreeing with the AI, or they should not be. In fact, I think they should be using it to really sharpen their critical thinking. I mean, the reason why I disagree with people is usually, well, partly the enjoyment, but the main reason why I disagree with people is because I want to test whether I'm right or not. So I'm like, oh, that's not right, correct? And then if they say, no, you're wrong, it is. Let me show you. And then I say, okay, so I'm right or I'm wrong. I use it to figure out, quote, the truth. Right?
Right.
And that's why you do it.
Yeah, I think to your question, I want to give you a more direct answer. So first, I want to demystify it a bit for you. If you look at that video that I just shared from Khan Academy, you'll see that what they've built is a tutor, not someone that just gives you the answer. It does not give you the answer. It is literally having a conversation with the student that is meant to scaffold their understanding in the same way that a good teacher would do, with empathy, and it does it really well today. So I think the question is informed a bit by the way we think of, let's say, the calculator or Google, where there's a question and an answer. So one of the misconceptions of using ChatGPT or these models is that it's a search engine or a way to find information. It is not.
That's right, it's not.
It is an idea engine. It's not a search engine. It's an idea engine. And it's, furthermore, I would argue it's effectively a compression of reality. It's like a multiverse, a world that you can traverse, move around, simulate things, simulate entire situations. So most of us are still at the point where we're just saying, okay, write a blog post and boom, and that's it. That is not what this thing is. That's why I'm saying a lot of it is misunderstood. This can create entire time-traveling worlds that you can traverse. And if you go to just Google OpenAI educators blog post, OpenAI actually published the prompt that made that Khan Academy tutor work.
Yeah.
And it's so incredibly simple and short. It's like literally this long. And it's a list. Do this, do this, do this, do this, do this, and that's it.
They may not have published everything.
They
about
have.
it.
They have. I've used it.
Yeah?
Yeah, and it
Okay.
works. So it's important to not be intimidated by this because it's all accessible to you. You can literally take that prompt, put it in ChatGPT, and start a session, and you'll see that it's actually doing this, and you can change it. Mm-hmm. So you as a creative mind can change it for your students. You can say, be more critical, be more accepting of other ideas, and it will do that. Now, it's important to see it not as a search engine. It's not good at retaining information, and part of the reason is because it is creative. Now, I think it's Picasso that said that all of us are born artists, and it gets pounded out of us, right? Our AIs were also born artists. They're making shit up, and it's sometimes dangerous, but some would call that creativity, and we're trying to stamp it out, right? We're trying to normalize it. So as a creativity tool, actually, you don't want to stamp that out. If you're trying to find a new cure for Parkinson's, then or some other Alzheimer's, you don't want to stomp out creativity. You want to leave that. So we have to recognize that for what it is, and not think that this is replacing Google, because it's not.
Right. No, it's actually something you can adjust. Let me actually try to, like, in the few minutes that we have left, let me try to take us to a completely farther space.
Can
Okay.
show what it'll look like.
Yeah, yeah. Let's talk about what do you think of the day when the instructor is an AI, where half your classmates are AI, your lab partner is an AI, you're working on a project and 2 people are human, and there's 2 experts on your team, and they are AIs that you can talk to about the project before you turn it in. What do you think about that world? Let's go back to Esther and let's get your point of view. Esther, is that a horrible world? Is that a good world? And what is the role of the real teacher in all of this kind of stuff?
So I think that's a really funny world to think about. I'm not sure that that's a real world. I don't see the AI sort of taking over, and then you have friends that are AI. It's sort of like they keep trying to say that old people want to have robots take care of them. I don't know anybody that wants to have a robot take care of them.
Because the kids
Wants
don't
to
call
be
them back.
educated by a robot.
Only young people say that.
I love the idea. But I think that the AI can be a partner and help the teacher. By the way, I just wanted to say that Khan Academy has a whole website devoted to how to teach using AI. So for those of you that are interested, you can go online and find it. And I don't think that that they say that the teacher should just retire and now the AI can take over.
All right. Okay. All right. So we have 1 vote for that's not going to happen. All right. That version that I just explained. What's your view? You work with multi-agent. You work with. You're in a room with 2 other AIs, and you're all having a discussion, an argument with them. You're learning something. Does it work? Does it not work?
I think as we start to embrace this, to the extent we look at it as a medium, as an empowerment tool. So I'm old enough to remember where we didn't have PowerPoint, and I remember learning from stencils, right? And before the Xerox machine.
Yeah.
So technologies help educators project their way of communicating, and this technology can do things. If we can go back to the presentation, that is kind of mind-boggling. Marco, let's see the slides again. So I'll just show you an example of that, where we can take a PowerPoint file, create a digital twin of Iqbal, and basically allow him to...
Welcome, everyone. Today we're going to dive into
So
an exciting topic.
what we're seeing here is a bit of a robotic version of him, but the input was just the PowerPoint. This was the orientation session for his course. The input is the PowerPoint slides, and the AI is sufficiently intelligent so that it can actually write the script that explains these slides. And
My AI's haircut is better than mine. How did you do that?
dude, I think you're wearing the same clothes.
No, it's a different shirt.
Oh, you sure? Okay.
Look closely.
So I kind of do this all day, every day, and most times the responses, that actually was better than what I could have done. And it's not better because it's replacing you. You still created the outline, the content. It's still informed by the way you speak and what you've done. But now there's a digital twin of you that you can now create more content. And incidentally, in the platform, if I don't understand something that you're explaining, I can type in the question, and he will stop and answer the question. This is not a dead medium anymore. It's a living medium.
We finally have an answer to that instructor engagement problem.
At scale. And now you can also teach a really bright mind, a little girl in Africa that is curious.
You can scale.
And you can scale.
It solves your scale problem.
And you can speak her language.
Right.
And she can converse with you, but it's still on the basis, the pedagogy that you set forth, the collective intelligence of the institution.
Okay, question for the audience, just for 1 second. Let's suppose you actually wanted to take a data science course from me, suppose, okay? Do you want to take it from the AI, or do you want to take it from me live?
That's the emotional
No,
blackmail.
I just want to know. All right, how many people say, I want to take it from the AI? Okay, now you're going to get the same number who say,
I
I
think
want to
the number
take it
should
from
be
you.
0.
Yeah, how many people want to take it from me?
Yeah.
Okay, what would it take to change that?
Well, can I phrase the question slightly differently? What if
Okay.
you couldn't tell if it's you or the AI?
All right, what if you couldn't tell? Would it make a difference? Well, you wouldn't know, I guess. All these years,
That's the world
my
we're-
students
yeah.
don't know. They've never met me. Yeah, okay. All right, no,
You've been at AI all along.
it's always been AI.
Yeah, we had
yeah.
to switch apart there before you stepped on stage.
Okay.
Oh, wait a minute. There's one other thing.
Yeah.
How happy are you to talk to AI as opposed to talk to a live person about a problem that you're having?
Yeah, I think we could go a lot of ways on that one. I'll just make this one comment because I know we're kind of at the end of time here. The comment to me is, if you can use the technology to have a personal connection with a greater number of people, that doesn't mean they have the connection with the AI. They have, maybe it's assisted by the AI, but now instead of knowing 50 students or 30, I could actually know and interact with 500. It might actually change the equation.
But the problem with the question posed is the premise of the question is wrong, because the people on the other side will not discern if it's an AI or not. The Turing test has already been passed.
Fine.
So there's a problem in the premise. When you have this collective intelligence for IE, which takes the brightest minds that teach here, now you can have the benefit of speaking to all of them about a multidisciplinary problem on demand, informed by their teachings, and also fuse together two personas. Let's say you're very analytical and engineering minded, and there's another person that brings in more behavioral knowledge, and you can ask this kind of hybrid of your thoughts and her thoughts the same question and get different answers. So this is where we start seeing things that are emergent, that are not in our past experience. And if the objective function is to learn something better or to solve a problem, if we can go back to the slide for a second,
All right.
you can have...
I'm going to give you about 30 seconds
yeah.
because we got to go.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
You're very... I said you can download this. This was created with AI, by the way. It's just basic, but in a year, it would be amazing. But the piece I wanted to briefly share with you is not this one, but rather this one. This is where the cutting edge of my field is. This is referred to as basically multi-agent. So today you're talking to a single person, like a kind of like Siri when you talk to an agent.
Yeah.
But what's happening now is we now have this ability to create these personas, these
Different people. Yeah.
entities with different types of expertise. So here you can't probably read the text, but I was suggesting how can IE embrace AI? Let's raise the volume a bit.
With generative AI, we can plot a course into the future of higher education in a way that is powered by innovation and creativity. This technology has the potential to revolutionize the way we teach
So these are all
and learn,
different
making
type of
education
experts.
more personalized and
He's a
adaptive.
generative AI strategist. Next time we have a senior UX designer, a copywriter, a change management advisor.
I think pause it. You'll be able to
Yeah.
make the point
Maybe lower
easier.
the volume. Just
Yeah.
lower the volume.
But your point is that all these AIs are talking to each other.
They're helping you
and-
solve a problem.
Yeah, right. And we're definitely getting there. Like, you can actually have a synthetic group. Okay, I'm going to say, final 20-second comment as we wrap up here. Go ahead, Ido, and then Esther, and then it's a wrap.
I just,
What is the emergent thing that happened in this conversation?
I'm just trying to leave it with a thought.
Yeah,
Just,
okay.
just a simple thought that historically we've used media to communicate learning.
Yeah.
Whether it's sitting in front of in an auditorium with a PowerPoint deck or a book, a textbook, and just imagine that premise of what the media is gets reinvented as a living media. What are the implications for learning?
Okay, all right. I hope it's smarter, but I agree with you. Okay, Esther, your final comment on, kind of overview whatever we talked about, or out of whatever we talked about.
I'm excited about what I heard this morning or this evening for you. The medium is the message. The medium is part of the message, I think. And I do think that AI can be a really strong partner in helping students learn, provided that we give students an opportunity to explore and not to be graded down when they do something that might need revision.
Maybe AI is the future lab where you can do whatever you want instead of it telling you what to do.
That's right. You can explore using AI, and you can learn from AI, and
got a point.
it can be a very enriching experience. But I don't think I'm really ready to have a friend at AI, even though I know little kids seem to like Surrey.
Yeah.
You know, after they get to be over 5, they realize Surrey isn't real.
Fair enough. Okay, we'll save all our Siri jokes for later. I personally have no extra opinions to add. I think you guys have been the most awesome guests. I want to say, first of all, Ido flew all the way from New York for this 1 hour. I mean, he's got like a super tight schedule. Like, thank you. And, you know, there's a lot going on in the world, and the fact that you can come here, focus on this important thing with us for, you know, this hour, I really appreciate it. Esther, I have to admit, I've known you for a while. This isn't the first time we ever met. I appreciate you popping in here. Your wisdom is phenomenal. I always enjoy it. Thank you for spending the time with us. And I'd say thank you to the audience for